Hey, Barrett, I hope you're having a great day, man. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm doing well.
Hey, we were in a little bit of a debate. I want to make you a part of the conversation. How much can college football eventually close the gap on the NFL? Can you think they can close that gap? They'll never overtake it, but you think they can close that gap of being between 1 and 2 right now in sports in this country?
Yeah, I think a little bit more. I mean, I think you've seen it sort of shrink a little bit the last half decade or so when people started realizing that the college football product itself is much more entertaining. I mean, are the players better? No. Are the athletes better? No. Is the coaching better? No. But the product is better because of the diversity, because you have creative coaches, because you have fluid rosters, because you have a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old kids who sometimes do really incredible things for 18 to 22-year-old kids and sometimes do incredibly dumb things for 18 to 22-year-old kids. So, I think more people realize that now. I saw a lot of NFL folks, traditional NFL folks, criticize the NFL product and compliment the college football product, over the course of the 2017 season, because they realize the NFL being a copycat league and slow to accept the fact that football evolved from peewee all the way up, has really hindered its progression. Whereas I think college football, really going back to maybe the end of the Mike Bellotti era at Oregon, sort of embraced that. Nick Saban embraced that in 2014 when he hired Lane. Auburn embraced that, won a national championship. Florida embraced that, won a couple national championships. So, it won't catch the NFL, but because the traditional teams like the Eagles, the Patriots, the Giants, all those traditional NFL cities it's so ingrained in their culture. But I think the casual football fan will understand that the passion for college football is second to none, and B, the product is more entertaining just from a pure, general fan standpoint.
Well, and Barrett, you covered the SEC for a long time, and I know you cover the college football scene from a national perspective now, but you look at Philadelphia Eagle fans, like they're looked at like oddballs. To me, that's just a typical SEC-type fan base. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, they're a little meaner in Philadelphia.
They are, but that's the same type of passion we have here in the SEC.
Yeah, the passion is what it is. I mean, I remember, I vividly remember the national championship games that I was not in attendance for over the last decade, especially during the SEC's run. When the winner won the game, they'd go live to a webcam, and it was the same stuff you saw in Philadelphia without the violence, that you saw last night in Philadelphia. So, it's the passion is what it is in really not just the SEC, but I'd say several ACC schools, a lot of the Big 12 schools, maybe not so much in the Pac-12, certainly in the Big 10. Those are the passion is I'd say greater than the NFL because you have a lot of people who actually are a part of the program that are fans. People that grow up in Philly or wherever, doesn't matter your city, you identify with the NFL team, and that's fine. But in college, you had people who actually work at the school, actually attended the school, sometimes, still go back and get degrees from the school, years later, that have memories of not just the athletic event, the football game itself, but, life there, living as a member of, the Alabama Crimson Tide or the Auburn Tigers or the Georgia, whatever, doesn't matter. And I think that passion, is deeper. And that's not to knock the fans who don't have that because they're still extremely passionate, but it's a different sort of animal when you can actually say, hey, I lived as a member of my favorite team, school, whatever. You don't have that possibility at the NFL level or really in any professional sport.
We're talking to Barrett Sallee, college football writer, analyst for CBS Sports.com, radio ESPNU on SiriusXM, SEC Smothered and covered on the podcast. Let me ask you, what can college football change to improve the overall product? What's one thing, if Barrett Sallee was in charge, what's one thing that you think that you could improve on college football that would continue to allow this sport to grow like we love it?
Well, I think I'll give you two, but the main one would be shorten games, because I do think the NFL's clock rules are designed to get the game in 3 hours. Now, the Super Bowl is different because it's the Super Bowl, but and college did this a few years back when they changed up the clock rules where you didn't stop the clock every single time somebody went out of bounds. But I'd say follow the NFL's clock rules when it comes to stopping the clock strictly, but then also speed things up that in places that nobody really does right now. And I think the main way to do that would be after a score, whether it be a touchdown or an extra point or a field goal or a safety, don't go to commercial. You can scroll in, the picture-in-picture commercial, but just make it be the next play like you would any other play. If you need to scroll in a picture-in-picture commercial, that's fine. Nobody's going to really care that much about a kickoff anyway, because more times than not, they're touchbacks now. That, I think, would go a long way toward fixing college football, because some of these games, because of the diversity of styles, especially in some of these other conferences, when you get 45 to 40 games, I mean, they're 5-hour commitments, and that's just too long.
Barry, let me ask you about cord cutting. Is that the biggest problem that this sport faces? And this is across the board. I mean, this is every sport that you and I love and watch and we're dialed into. This affects them because of TV contracts and revenue and future revenue. Is cord cutting that big of a deal?
No, because I cut the cord in August and I didn't miss anything. I have Hulu Live and I love it. I mean, no, I mean, I don't think it is, because live sports is live sports and you're going to always tune in. I just think that the way that networks have approached sort of how to, how to deal with it has been sort of disjointed. Now I think there's some sort of push out there to get on all of these. I have Hulu Live, but YouTube TV or whatever, in the same fashion that you got on cable systems in the past. And I think in 5 years or so, maybe even shorter period of time, you're going to see a much bigger push from a lot of these broadcasters to basically just do a la carte with their own streaming programs. CBS News has an app that is, it includes a live 24-hour news channel right now. That's exactly like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, whatever. It's the same thing. It's just only available streaming. I think you're going to see a lot of these carriers or these networks just decide to cut out the middleman. They sell all of the space themselves and they stream it themselves, rather than putting it on traditional cable services, or even now some of these services that are used for cord cutting, like the one I use, Hulu Live or YouTube TV or Sling or whatever else.
Yeah, my wife and I had dinner the other night, and she looked at me and she goes, "Ryan, can you believe that you're paying $153 a month for DirecTV?" She said, "You're paying $153 for DirecTV, and we rarely watch it." That's the crazy part, other than sports.
Oh, I'm telling you, like Hulu, I had DirecTV too, and I cut my DirecTV contract short 4 months, and Hulu Live paid for that ding for cutting my contract 4 months. It paid for it within a month and a half of Hulu Live, and it's incredible. There's no issues at all. So more people are doing it now. It definitely is different. But I think once you sort of get your mind around the idea that you're going to be on a little bit of a delay, and that's cool, and you have to sort of decipher a little bit more between on-demand stuff and live stuff, it's a lot easier. But cord cutting is it's not going to change really anything in terms of college athletics. I just think that the way the revenue is going to get to the conferences, and the same thing goes for pro sports at the national network level as well. The way that the revenue gets delivered is still going to be there. It's just going to be from a bunch of different ways. You
talked about National Signing Day 2018, and you talked about how early signing divided stable, unstable programs, how early signing divided those stable and unstable programs. It's a rich man's world. National Signing Day in 2018 is proof of that. Explain.
Yeah, like, you were there when Nick Saban kind of railed against the early signing period. I mean, he's done it several times. Urban Meyer did it quite often. Gus Malzahn did it. Kirby Smart's done it. All these coaches hated the early signing period a month and a half ago. I got a feeling all those guys love it right now. And Urban Meyer sort of alluded to this during his early signing day press conference in December, where he kind of looked down and said, God, we have 21 signees right now. This is unbelievable. Because he recognized, wow, January you can be in maintenance mode. You can, with a few guys, you can pick and choose a couple guys to go after, and you can work ahead towards 2019 and 2020, while the other programs that are not stable, like a Tennessee, a Florida State, a Texas A&M, a Florida that made coaching changes, they have fewer kids signed and enrolled and have to work like hell just to make sure that the guys who are committed but not signed stick around, because guys like Nick Saban, Gus Malzahn, Urban Meyer, Kirby Smart are sitting there picking and choosing their battles and going full bore at some of those guys. So since the finish line changed, which is essentially what happened with the early signing period, it made unstable programs basically incapable of stabilizing themselves enough to be contenders during that recruiting cycle. Next year, Tennessee may fix itself. Florida State, whatever, Texas A&M, fine. But there's a real difference between the haves and the have-nots during this recruiting cycle that I think is pretty stark, and I think that is going to make a lot of these guys like Nick Saban, who hated the early signing period in December, love it on Wednesday.
If you want to go read that article, CBSSports.com. Another article that grabbed my attention is something that Florida State's doing with their spring game. They're going to feature a concert with Vanilla Ice and some other guys as well. Is this a trend that's going to happen in college football? We saw it a couple of years ago with Georgia and Athens there. Is this going to be a trend that picks up in college football?
Yeah, I think so, because I think a lot of people are realizing what coaches realized about 5 years ago, that spring games are kind of boring. They're kind of dumb. You don't see anything. They move very quickly, and you still want to have that event, and you still want to have people on campus because it's a TV show for all these schools. So if you can find a way to make sure that stadium is packed, whether it's bringing Rob Base, Vanilla Ice, and Salt and Pepper in town or whatever, do it, because again, that's the one sort of window you have into the football program for like 8 months as a fan, as a general outsider. And if you can make it look good, you do anything you can to make it look good. Now, Alabama doesn't really have that problem because Alabama still. I think they've led in spring game attendance, like 6 of the last 8 years or something like that. But I mean, I think even Alabama fans will admit the spring game itself, especially with Nick Saban, is really like all of them are boring for every school, and so you need to make it a party. So make it a party.
Yeah, but this one in Tuscaloosa this year is going to be. I mean, it's going to be dynamic. I mean, to watch. I mean, right now people are dying to see more of Tua Tagovailoa, and obviously
ain't going to see him in a spring game.
Well, but I mean, you'll see him with obviously Jalen Hurts in the competition.
With nobody blitzing.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, he'll light them up, and maybe that's what people want to see. It's all about offensive numbers, right?
That's true. They'll light it up, that's for sure, but they won't show anything either. So, Alabama, I think spring in general is going to be fascinating with Jalen and Tua, because, I mean, with the new offensive staff, or not staff, but new offensive coordinator anyway, and some new assistants in there, and the fact that Tua has that buzz building with him, he's the top-ranked quarterback in Heisman odds by Bovada. Which, I mean, look, Tua had a great national championship game. You and I saw it from the sideline. Tua should not be ranked ahead of Trace McSorley in the Heisman odds right now. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, but that Alabama, man, when you put that Alabama name into that.
Oh, no, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand why he is, but, I mean, there are other quarterbacks who I think who are are equally as electric and far more proven. But it does not to knock Tua, but it will make spring fascinating, that's for sure.
Well, Barrett, one of the other things, if Alabama does not sign a quarterback, and it doesn't look like they're going to on Wednesday, then they got to roll out the red carpet for Jalen Hurts. They got to make sure, even if he does not win this job, that he's happy.
Well, and that's going to be tricky, too. And Mac Jones, too. I mean, because he was pretty, I wouldn't say highly touted, but he was pretty touted. No, but, that's what I think is going to I'm going to find fascinating, because in years past, and basically universally, Alabama has always slow played all of its quarterbacks in a battle situation, right? Like, they've let it linger until the week of, if not beyond, the first game of the season. This, I think, is going to be a little bit trickier, because if you want to do right by the loser of the battle, you need to tell them early, because, Jalen did lead Alabama to 2 straight national championship games. He lost 2 games in 2 years as a starting quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa played one half of football and won a national championship for you. Both of those guys earned, I think, the right to know exactly where they stand after spring practice and then make an informed decision. But that has not been Alabama's track record under Nick Saban. They do not do that.
And I just learned on your Twitter feed here, and that's why you need to go follow Barrett Sallee. Barrett Sallee, find him on the Twitter account. Shane Matthews going to prison? Yeah,
that is a strange story. No one even knew about that. There's a former Florida player, I guess is part of the teams that Shane Matthews is on. They got 40 years for basically a government health insurance and pyramid scheme. And Shane Matthews got 3 months as sort of a role player in the scheme, which is, I didn't even know that. Like, I had never heard that story in my life, and it popped up today. Like, in like the 9th paragraph of the story of the other Florida player, it's like, oh yeah, Shane Matthews got 3 months in federal prison too.
I think Shane Matthews, he's in radio in Gainesville. Am I not mistaken?
I don't know. Is he? I think maybe.
Yeah. And he also coaches, it's high school football, right? I mean, he coaches in that. Wow. So that's, anyway, hey, that's why you need to go follow Barrett Sallee, man. He finds stories like this, man. I didn't even not know that was even out there until I went and, Only Gators is what you retweeted there. Adam Silverstein. Barrett Sallee, thank you again for being a part of the show. Hope you have a great week. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks for having me.